Hello and welcome. It is your weekly program that has always been concerned with the virtual gathering. That is, the gathering that occurs on air and online. I'm Sherwood McCaskey, as always, thanks for your time. In last week's program, Jennifer Seeley and her daughter took us on the tour of small town and surrounding areas. In this week's program, we will learn of life in two communities here in St. John. The first one is described by Professor Sir Woodville Marshall in his book of Halls, Hills and Holes, Place Names of Barbados, as located to the north of Todd's, south of Four Crossroads, and west of Bomiston. In the center of all of that, you will find Cherry Grove, St. John. A son of the community, Pearson Bellamy, takes us into his personal space here in Cherry Grove. You will recognize that quite a lot of activities in this community centered around the school, which was situated on this spot where I'm standing. Take it over, Mr. Bellamy.
Cherry Grove was an old house, hip house, and it was converted into a school. My brother went to school at Cherry Grove. I understand that he walked into school because our house was next door to the school when he was 3 years old. And by the time he reached 7 years, he had left Cherry Grove and gone to St. John. And that's another story. And the school catered for the children from the surrounding districts. Henley, Bomiston, Poole, Tawes, as far as Ashbury, Lemon Harbor, and all assembled at Cherry Grove. The roll at in the 50s, 40s, and 50s was about 119, 120. The headmistress was Mrs. Mabel Graves, and she was assisted by Pauline Seeley, Phyllis Seeley, Vernie Rouse. And there used to be a lot of fun with Miss Rouse because you would hear the children rhyming. Miss Rose caught a mouse, put it in the pot and called it sauce. Well, that meant licks. You should not do that to your teacher. But the school taught the normal stuff of English, arithmetic, social studies, and hygiene. And in those days, we had to, on mornings before we go into school, we had to pick up the pasture. Take out the cane peeling and have the space. And we also had, at the end of the school term, we had to scrub the benches and the desks. That was part of it. But probably we did a good thing until they got a janitor there to do that sort of thing. And we also got biscuit and milk. That was to help with our nutrition. Milk was made in the milk room downstairs of the school. It was downstairs was in the cellar of the school. The milk was made down there and biscuits were shared out to the children. Each man would get a tumbler of milk and 2 biscuits around 10 o'clock in the morning. That eventually went out after school meals came in. In the afternoon, after lunch, after you come in, you sing Brightly Shine the Gems of India. And then Miss Grace, she had 2 straps. Brown Boy and Alice. Brown Boy was given to her by a guy named Brown. And Alice was given to her, she used to be in the Lorna, we call her Alice. And when you see Miss Grace put Alice around her neck and go to the classroom, stand everybody after you come in after lunch, tables, 6 fours, and you foolish enough to say 18, Alice will talk to you. And that is how things went on at the school and so forth. Now, Cherry Grove School was school on Monday to Friday. The school was the property of St. John's Parish Church. So the church army met Sunday nights for meeting and also a day in the week, the whole meeting as well. But the school provided for the Financial University of Cherry Grove. Let me explain that. The front step was used for the assembly, but the back step of the school, we had fellows who would come there and the faculty of roaming, the faculty of bone dice, the faculty of dominoes, the faculty of whoppy, and you name it. And these fellas will go and gamble until member of the constabulary from Four Roads come up and police in town, and every man jack gone, left the smut lamp, left the money, and the police got it and gone back down the road.
This is what remains of the old Cherry Grove Primary School, a step and elements of the foundation. It was, in a sense, the epicenter of life here in this community. Still on the compound, many an interesting game was played right here on this pasture. Experiences of an interesting festive occasion will also be revealed.
The Cherry Grove School had a pasture, not very large. So on Sunday afternoons, the girls and boys would play rounders. At night, when the moon is shining, we would play tool 'em up, hitty bitty, and hide and hoop. Hide and hoop was a dangerous game, and I will not tell you youngsters what it really meant. But normally, boys and girls would play hide and hoop, and all of a sudden, you'll miss a girl and a boy. Enough said. Now we move on now to the to Christmas time around the same school. There used to be the Father Christmas. This was a effigy of a man well dressed in full suit and a coconut as his head, or a breadfruit, because breadfruits were plentiful then. Coconut or breadfruit as his head, a hat, and then the owner of the Father Christmas will prop him up, and the fellas will bet on who will knock him down. And in those days, it used to be sixpence and shillings. And you knock him over for a shilling, you bet the man that when you throw your stick and you miss, the shilling belong to the man. So, but if you hit him and knock him down, you had to knock him down, you know. Don't hit him and spin him wrong. If you spin him wrong and come back wrong, he didn't go down.
From games to those activities that drove commerce in the community. What about community shops? Who sold what and where were they situated?
The main shop in Cherry Grove was the Walter Mears Variety Shop. It sold groceries, sold bicycle parts, and at one stage he even ventured into selling, he had a bars to sell rum, but he eventually cut out the rum part and concentrated mainly on the bicycle parts, and he also sold material. But that was his shop in Cherry Grove where lots of people from Poole, Cherry Grove, Kendall, Bowmanston came down to Walter Mears' shop to get their provisions. That was the first shop I knew. Then after him, okay, there was another shop which was run by a guy called Barry Bellamy. And that shop used to be mostly rum. And in front of that shop was a joiner shop which made furniture. Walter Mears' shop was the main shop. Further up the road at Cherry Grove, and you turn right as if you're going towards Sandy, there was the Box Hill shop. He also sold rum. As you know, with these, a lot of rum drinkers and sugarcane workers, and we also had a lot of painters, and painters normally drink rum. Then as we move from there, we're going from Mears to the west, and through the alley, Miss Logan had a shop as well down there, and that also sold dry goods. But mostly these smaller shops will sell like biscuits, and they will be open anytime. You can go and call and knock at it and get the juicy or the Canada Dry or the Martineau drink or the Coke. But the juicy was the drink of choice. After that, we had another shop there, which was run by Evelyn Bradford. Her husband used to drive a truck, and he used to keep animals and so on at the back. But she had the shop in the front of the house, and that shop was merely a rum shop as well. And the drink of choice was the white rum. And the white rum was sold as a nip a flask, or if you're buying it loose, you'll get a snap or a bishop. You know a bishop? A bishop is a glass twice the size of a snap glass. It will hold about a gill. So when a man calls for bishop, you know that he is a proper rum drinker. But the snap would be for the fella that just trying to let the smell of alcohol get on his breath.
Bishop or snap? Could you hold your own, or you are more the type who wish for just a taste? Now, there's a special link between Cherry Grove and Hindley. The commercial activities extended to those parts.
In Henley, there was a guy who used to sell coals. Coals was used in the coal pots of the day. And the coals will come up and you'll go and buy a few pounds of coals and you put them in, light the coal pot, and you have the clothes urn. The clothes urn serve two purposes. One, to press the clothes, and the other one, you tie a piece of marlin twine tight. Right? Don't try this now. And instead of going to the dentist, and you got a tooth that is shaking, you tie the other end of the twine to the tooth and throw the urn through the window. And that saves you some money going to the dentist. Of course, there'll be plenty of bleeding, which will be stopped by some salt and water and a little rum. And the rum was supposed, as they would say, deaden the gum. But then there were some people who kept deadening the gum the whole night. But the coals were used for the clothes urn in this coal pot, which used to carry about 4, and used to wipe the bottom of the clothes urn with a banana leaf to clean it off. And then you rub it on a cloth to clean off anything off it before you put it on your clothing. And in those days, a lot of us used to wear white shirts. And you had to wash those white shirts with Bonavis to get out the dirt from around the collars. Because you had blue soap and Bonavis. Used to do it. And then when you finish washing your clothes, you'll hang them out on the grass or rocks. And when the sun comes, then you wet them and let them dry and so on. And the grass that you had there below the house to dry was also used for another purpose. The beds in those, you didn't hear about the mattress and whatnot. You used to have a jute mattress. You know jute? Crocus bag then. A crocus bag mattress. And most of the youngsters would sleep on a horse and boy. You know what's a horse and boy? The horse and boy would be just that you have the carpenter working and you have the board across it. So you put just like a table, and then you put the crocus bag on top of that. And that formed the kind of bedstead. Otherwise, the four-poster bed used to be used by the parents, and that would be top layer. And the bottom layer would be the children on the bags and so on. In other words, on the floor. So they're sleeping on the floor. That was what it meant. And the beds, they were not mattresses. They were big, made of domestic or flour bags. And were stuffed with dried cuscus grass. And sometimes you'll hear somebody saying, "I come by you, make up the bed high." Well, you know what they mean. Yeah? But the bed was, when they got in the cuscus grass, it's dry and whatnot. And you go and you lay down that bed, you hear the noise, of course, going down. Those were fun days. And I went into that to let you know that we all didn't come along and find the Simmons bedstead. And in the four-poster beds was a big, we still have a few nowadays, but they were very heavy and cumbersome. And because most of the houses were covered with shingles, the centerpiece used to be in the roof. So the four-poster beds, that's how they got the four. And then on top of this bed would be a canopy, so that if a lizard dropped down from out of the roof in the night, it would drop down the canopy and it would not get down to you on the bed. Because if a centipede dropped down, it woe betide you. But these are things that happened in those days, but we have gone past those days now, I would say.
Meanwhile, I continue to enjoy a seat here on the step of the old Cherry Grove Primary School. Now, these communities were in the center of plantations. Stories have always been told about community members helping themselves to the sugar cane. But how many of you have heard this proposal by a plantation owner?
Bomiston Plantation is east of Cherry Grove, and the fellas from Cherry Grove, man, will go in Bomiston ground. And you talk about sugar cane, the 151s, the banana canes, you can plant those near Cherry Grove because you will think you have canes by the head row. But when you go inside, the fellas got in there, ransack. Canes gone, man, suck out all the canes. At one time, when the extraction of a tooth was $3, the manager at Bomiston tell a fellow from Cherry Grove, I will not call his name, that he will pay Dr. Carrington $96 to extract all his teeth so as to improve the quantity of sugar canes they get from the Cherry Grove field.
Well, there was a special relationship between Cherry Grove and Four Crossroads. In fact, the latter was regarded as the town center of the parish. It was a regular gathering, meeting place. Let us learn of the life, the magic and the energy that was Four Crossroads.
We'll move now from Cherry Grove and we'll move down to the town. On nights, Saturday nights, people from all over that western side of St. John will congregate at Four Roads. There you had the police station, then now the fire station, the post office, Pierre Clark Grocery and Store, the Ebenezer Pharmacy, which is the drugstore, Ivan Weeks Variety Shop or Store, Miss Wharton, she used to sell rum, Gutters used to sell rum and cigarettes and so on, a special cigarette called a Tom, which used to smell very, very badly indeed. And then there were bread sellers like Netta Burton and Kathleen Culmer. The butcher was Packer Reed. And then there was the blacksmith across the road, whose name was Mr. Aline. Further down the road by the post office, there used to be a farrier called, can't recall his name, but the farrier used to be down that road. Now these trades I've just called to you, the farrier and the blacksmith, as well as the saddler, they are now out of existence except for the farrier, because farriers are still required at Garrison Savannah to look after the hooves of the horses and so on. But the blacksmith used to make equipment for the sugar factories and also cart wheels for the cane carts. And the saddler used to make the harness. The last saddler I saw in Cherry Grove was Mr. Frank Lewis, but he's passed on now a while. But he made the last set of work I saw him doing, he was doing it for a team of mules in St. Kitts, and that was a big job for him. But the saddler made the harness you saw in the car. Those three trades are now out. Now what raw turn dealers now call raw turn was usually done by the blacksmiths. And they would make furniture and whatnot and wheels and so on. So in a sense, that name has evolved to raw turn specialist. Now in Four Roads, when the people gather there at night, people going to get groceries, some going to play draft or any other game at Gutters. Some went to imbibe in liquid pleasures. While there was an academic group which also met to discuss words of at a high level, and they call it verbal gymnastics. And the big thing about that, once the guys were arguing as how to pronounce the word Prefer. So is that prefer or prefer? And one guy came down the road to sell the argument and he said, to be honest with you, I prefer say prefer. That story was given to me by my brother because he was in the crowd of men at that time. And those guys were sort of the academics around there at the time.
While there was to be found no dance hall in Cherry Grove, neither here in Four Cross Roads, there were several in the parish, and these were patronized by the people of the two communities.
The dance halls in St. John were the Sandbox in Moselle Street, the City Hall Casino, the Club Carolina in Small Town by Jan Vasili. She didn't tell you what Club Carolina. Club Carolina. Then you had the Ark in Church View. And I think those are the ones that I could remember offhand. But the Ark, Club Carolina, Sandbox in Moselle Street, and the one in City Hall. No, and the Gull Hill Social Center was also a dance place. Now mark you had to be a regular guy to hold a dance. You had to be able to go to other people's dances and they will come to yours. If you used to give trouble and you hold a dance at St. John's Social Center, at some point in time, the dance will be broken up. This is how it happens. This is how it happens. Now at a dance, the dance will start at 9 o'clock. But then the selling of the drinks and the food will start around 11 going midnight. So if you and the fellas in seeing eye to eye, somebody will come in the social center and pick a noise. Fight will break down, dance break up, and you left with all your food there. None sold. That is how things used to go. At City Hall, there used to be a similar thing. But Club Carolina was not that, there's no turn into a residence. But Club Carolina never had that type of, but the social center, that was a trouble spot. That was a trouble spot. But nowadays, it's mostly used for religious purposes.
Many of you would regard that as good news which should be welcomed by all. The name Pearson Bellamy is synonymous with the promotion of cultural activities, especially here in the parish of St. John.
Let us talk about the cultural activity in St. John. When I was a boy, my godfather, Alfred Padmore, had a choir. And they used to sing for service of songs and whatnot. They sang mostly religious songs. And that Padmore, he was a Padmore, and the majority of the people in the choir were Padmores. Uncles, daughters, uncle's son, this body. Incidentally, he had no children. But that choir was very sweet choir. And that went along for a few years. He used to go around and sing service of songs and whatnot until he stopped that. But then, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, there came a choir by the name of the Laurie White Chorale, which used to practice in the social center at Gull Hill. And there used to be a competition every New Year's. And that choir would win all the competition, every segment, including the banner, because the banner was made by the wife of the manager of pool, and she was an artist. And she always gave of her best. And the Laurie I think he used to drive at pool at some time. So he had a connection then, and because this thing meant a lot to pool and so on, that is how things went. Laurie White Choir, and some of the members of that choir that are still around. They will tell you if I don't call the name, they'll be thing. But Audrey Waif was one of the members of the choir. She sang either soprano or alto. But she still sings today in the St. John Parish Church Choir. And she still sings very well indeed. And I think Brown, another member of the St. John's Parish Church Choir, was also a member of that choir. When that choir went into abeyance, the St. John's Dramatic and Fort St. group then came into being. And its first concert was held in Four Roads on the 26th of June 1968. That was then the Church Army Hall after they moved from Cherry Grove from the school. They moved to Four Roads and Spooners. And the St. John's Dramatic and Fort St. group held sway in the parish and then held sway in Barbados. We'll remember the names of the members of the group. Some have passed on because if they performed in 1968, you know they can't be spring chickens at this time. You have the Glasgows, the McCollins, the Seeleys, the Rouses, the Lashleys, the Mears, Errol and his brother, the McCollins, and those McCollins, all of them were singers. All of them were singers. Darren McCollin won the Richard Stoke competition, and I think, and his brother, he's now in England as a teacher, but the McCollin boys, very good singers. Darren, excellent. He now sings in the St. John's Choir. But they were all members and they were all fairly good dramatists. And every independence, the St. John's Dramatic and Fort St. group would stage a play at the social center. And the whole parish would try to get there. So in that way, because the center was small, that play had to be held over for about 3 weekends. And great was the fun and great, and people are still wanting us to come back and do one more show. But it's not as easy as when we were young. We have other activities to attend to. And secondly, we would be at the center till minutes to midnight and so on and walk home. So the St. John's Drama Group performed in the length and breadth of Barbados at every major function. Also performed in the Caribbean and also went as far as the 5 states in North America and performed. Those were the glory days of the St. John's Drama Group. We would like those days to come back, but I do not have that kind of energy with me to do that.
Mr. Bellamy, you have done your part. You have sown the seeds, and those seeds have germinated and flourished. Pearson Bellamy has left his mark on the Barbadian landscape and has never forgotten his beloved community, Cherry Grove, which nurtured him.
After I became a man and whatnot, the people in Cherry Grove looked forward to me to do lots of things for them. And it was an honor to do it. The guys that worked in the plantation and had to pay income tax, I used to assist them in working out the income tax for them. And then I would have to, sometimes when the fellas I had to sign off on the income tax form for them as well. Then I had to do some private lessons to persons who want a better grip of the subjects in which I was proficient at. I also helped that. And I found that I simply was very fond of Cherry Grove. It meant so much to me. It's the first school I went to before I went off to the St. John's Mixed School. And I found that the Cherry Grove School and the friends that I got there, and the friends which I still cherish up to this day, because I can go into Cherry Grove anytime and you'll hear, they don't call me Pearson. They say, Mr. Bellamy is coming through. And I get the full respect of all the people, young and old. that is Mr. Bellamy coming through. Because they look forward to me as someone with a certain degree of knowledge. Not that I have it.
Everywhere I go, people want to know.